Privileged access doesn't end when a role is assigned. In this topic, we'll use Microsoft Entra PIM to monitor activations, capture audit evidence, spot risky patterns, and regularly confirm that powerful access is still justified. We've already built the foundation: why privileged access matters, how PAM controls protect credentials and sessions, and how PIM enables just-in-time activation with approval and MFA. Now we shift into operations: monitoring activity, auditing evidence, reviewing access, and continuously improving privileged access governance. PIM is not a set-and-forget control. It reduces standing privilege by making elevated access temporary, but every activation still needs governance. Audit logs provide the evidence trail: who activated a role, when, why, and whether required controls were satisfied. Alerts turn that activity into early warning signals when patterns look risky or unusual. Access reviews close the loop by confirming that eligibility and assignments are still justified. Together, these practices prevent privilege creep, improve accountability, and keep privileged access aligned with real business need. Think of PIM audit history as the evidence layer behind privileged access. It does more than show who has a role. It shows how access was requested, approved, activated, changed, and eventually removed. Activation logs help prove that controls such as MFA, justification, and approval were enforced at the moment of use. Assignment logs explain the life cycle of eligible and active access. Approval history ties decisions to people, times, and business reasons. Administrator actions show whether the rules themselves changed. Together, these records help security teams answer a key audit question: was access appropriate, controlled, and accountable? Activation logs let you reconstruct privileged activity as a sequence, not a guess. For each activation, capture who requested it, which role was used, when it started and ended, and how long it remained active. Also, record the context: justification, ticket number, MFA completion, and approval. During review, compare that context with the behavior. An after-hours global administrator activation, repeated requests, or vague justification should raise questions. This history supports investigations, incident response, and audits because it shows whether temporary privilege was used properly. Assignment logs show the audit trail for privileged role assignments. They identify who received access, which role was assigned, whether it is eligible or active, and whether it expires or remains in place. That distinction is important. Temporary eligible access supports just-in-time administration, because privilege is available only when approved and needed. Permanent active access is much riskier, because it creates standing privilege that attackers and auditors both care about. Use these records to confirm scope, dates, and the assigning administrator. Then identify exceptions for certification, audit evidence, and compliance reporting. Every privileged access request should leave a clear review trail. Approval history tells you who reviewed the request, what decision they made, when it happened, what access was requested, and why it was justified. Denials and expirations matter too. They show that governance controls are working, not just that activation succeeded. The second trail is administrator activity. Changes to role settings, activation requirements, approver lists, or notifications can quietly weaken controls. Disabling MFA or removing approval, for example, creates unmanaged risk. Reviewing both trails together shows whether access was properly approved and whether the process remained trustworthy. Those audit records should not stay isolated inside the admin experience. Export PIM audit data into a centralized repository so activation, assignment, elevation, approval, and deactivation events can be retained and searched over time. From there, send the data to Sentinel, Log Analytics, Storage Archives, or a third-party SIEM. The real value comes from correlation. Matching privileged activity with sign-ins, conditional access decisions, endpoint alerts, and resource changes. That turns raw audit records into investigation context, compliance evidence, and reporting. Retention should be defined deliberately based on regulatory, legal, and organizational requirements. Access reviews create a repeatable checkpoint for privileged access. They confirm that roles, groups, and privileged access group memberships are still justified. You define what will be reviewed, choose the right reviewers, collect approve or remove decisions, and then apply the outcome. Just as important, the review record becomes audit evidence for compliance and investigations. Running these reviews on a schedule helps catch privilege creep early, especially when people change teams, projects end, or temporary access was never cleaned up. Before launching an access review campaign, design it carefully. Start by deciding exactly what is in scope: privileged roles, eligible assignments, groups, or access to a specific resource. Then set the frequency based on risk. Global administrator may need more frequent review than a low-risk group. Next, choose reviewers who can make informed decisions, such as owners, managers, or role administrators. Finally, define what each decision means. Do not know should trigger validation, not become a quiet approval. Good design turns reviews into measurable governance action. Reviewers need enough evidence to make a defensible choice. They should understand what the user does, why access is needed, how it was assigned, and whether privileged access has actually been used. PIM recommendations add another signal by highlighting inactive users or permissions that exceed business need. Strong decision support also includes sign-in and activation history, justification quality, and ownership context. When approvals or denials require a clear justification, every decision becomes traceable, auditable, and easier to challenge if risk changes later. An access review is not complete when a reviewer clicks approve or deny. The important step is converting that decision into action. Approved access can remain in place. Denied access may trigger assignment removal, expired eligibility, or group membership updates. No response should not be ignored. It needs a default policy or escalation path. Auto-apply can make this efficient, but use extra caution with highly privileged roles where a mistake has broad impact. Finally, retain the decision, action, timing, and reviewer context as evidence for audits and future improvement. PIM alerts provide focused risk signals for privileged identity management. They help you spot conditions that deserve review, such as too many global administrators, roles being activated unusually often, standing privileged assignments, or access that is not being properly governed. Treat each alert as a starting point, not a final verdict. Investigate the account, role, timing, and business reason. Validate whether the activity was expected. Then remediate by reducing assignments, enforcing just-in-time access, or tightening approval rules. Finally, document the decision. PIM alerts complement SIM monitoring by highlighting identity-specific privilege risks. When a PIM alert fires, follow a consistent playbook instead of treating it as a one-off cleanup task. First, triage the alert and confirm the business need. Then check activation history, audit logs, and ownership. If there are too many global administrators, reduce membership and move people to narrower roles. If roles activate too often, look for process gaps, automation needs, or misuse. Convert permanent access to eligible access where possible. Bring unmanaged privilege under PIM with reviews and monitoring. Finally, document the outcome and tune controls. The key message is that PIM governance is continuous. Audit history gives you evidence. Access reviews confirm that privilege is still justified. Alerts surface risky patterns before they become incidents. Together, these capabilities help you log, monitor, review, and remediate privileged access. Next, we'll turn them into repeatable operating practices with clear ownership and sustainable procedures.